what a difference do tires and front suspension springs make. Hey everybody, Dimitri here. Welcome to my super messy garage. A lot of work going on, kind of in progress here. Since I've had a chance to just do a little test ride of the bike the way that it came to me from the previous owner last week, I am now getting it set up for myself fully. All right, so the first thing to cover are these start-stop switches, replacing the stock single switch, which kind of sucks if you're familiar with it. It's hard to press. It doesn't always work 100% of the time, so these are much more reliable and just kind of nice. These are by Enduro Engineering, but you can buy them from anywhere. And the Enduro Engineering ones are nice because they're all pre-wired, really high quality. You just plug and play. In case you're trying to do this real quick the night before a ride, is the stock switches actually don't detach from the bar this way. You have to slide them off the end of the bar, including the map switch. So if you've got bark busters on and things like that, it turns it into a little bit of a project. So making our way to the front, the next thing I needed to do is to swap the springs. The bike had, I think, 46 springs in there, and I wanted to go back to the 44s, to the stock ones. The 46s are a little too heavy for me. So pretty easy to do. These are the closed cartridge forks, so it's a little bit different than the Explorer that I'm used to, but it's still pretty straightforward. I called 812 suspension. They gave me the oil spec. One interesting thing is the manual calls for 390 milliliters or cc's of oil, and they actually recommended 350 or even 340 for enduro / hard enduro, just to give that little bit more plushness. So just something to keep in mind, guys. If you find these forks are a little bit too harsh, something that is very easy to do is to play with the oil level. You can drain, you have to take the fork out of the bike to do it, but you can drain a few cc's of oil out of it pretty easily. So it's a pretty easy thing to try. New front tire, Dunlop MX34 front. That's been my go-to, my kind of favorite tire recently. I really like it. I think for anybody that likes the M59, I think it feels very similar, but it has a little bit more ultimate grip. So it's still very responsive, very precise feeling, but the knobs on it are a bit taller, so it works pretty well in loose stuff. So next up, I ended up getting another one of these Polysport disc guards / bottom of suspension guards. I actually really like these. These are my favorite one. They are very protective. They last forever. I had one on my gas. I still have it on the gas. It's really, really kind of abraded to almost nothing, but they just don't crack. Polysport plastics in general are amazing. Something that I also did is I cut holes in the bottom here so I can get to the adjusters. So getting the 12-tooth sprocket here, that's kind of what I decided to do. Stock rear sprocket for now, 12-tooth front. That should give me a little bit of a even shorter gearing than I've been running on my gas. So it's like a 8% reduction across the board. So I think that should work pretty well. These Polysport swing arm guards. I know there's a lot of fans of crosslink components and their design is really cool, but I actually really like these Polysport ones. I've had them on the gas also for like 200 hours. They're awesome. As long as you use the big zip ties, they don't really fall off. And I hit a lot of rocks. I'm not a very precise rock rider, so I hit a lot of rocks. And they're also pretty affordable, which is nice, because if you lose one or you break one, it's not a big deal. These are a newer design, so they're actually they're designed to go over your tabs right here and bolt onto the bike. So that's actually really cool because they're not just zip tied on, so they are actually held on with some hardware. I had to cut that off obviously because I have this Bulletproof Designs guard on here. They actually are held on. There's a little bracket right here that goes under the guide for the brake line, and it bolts on right here. So, and then 2 big zip ties. So it's really solid, fits super good, looks nice, lasts forever, great. if you do get one of these, something I recommend doing is actually trimming. So it goes all the way in there. And I recommend trimming this to about here, because what I've had happen on my other bike is it will actually rub on your brake master. And in my case, it actually abraded a good chunk of aluminum off of it. So it's, maybe if they fit super, super tight, they don't do that. Maybe if they're clean, they don't do that. But I don't ride in clean environments. Things are not always super tight after they hit a bunch of rocks. So I just cut them right here, make new holes and zip tie it on. Not a big deal. And really, this is not an area where you're gonna hit a bunch of rocks anyway. So it works out super well. So a couple other things that I have in the mail that probably won't get here super soon, so I won't put them as part of this video, but I'm gonna swap the full wraps for SXS handguards, just because I really like the feel of the open handguards much better, and the SXSs are fantastic. They make the whole bar setup look much, much cleaner. And down here, on the Polysport note, love me some Polysport plastics. So I actually ordered some Polysport wrap around fork covers. We are pretty much ready to rock here. Did a few more things, swapped the plastics. It actually looks pretty sick, and I'm gonna get some graphics for it too at some point. Maybe for the next set of plastics, we'll see how long these last. So I took the rear light portion off. I was at first contemplating keeping this part on because it's actually still adds a little bit of rigidity. And this piece, the taillight is expensive. This piece is actually only like 20 bucks, I want to say. It's pretty cheap. So it almost makes sense to keep it. But after kind of playing with the fender actually is pretty solid on this bike. It's not very sharp, so it'll be all right. And I'm also going to try a rear lift strap. The bikes in Romania have these, and normally I don't really like them because I feel like they're a little bit too far forward to really get a good grip on. But there's certain situations where you kind of got to pivot the back of the bike up or lift it up a side hill, where these actually work super well. And I've got a front strap that I'm taking off my bike coming. It's one of the Highland Recreation ones. I highly recommend ones that aren't a closed loop on the forks, because if you're like me, every time you pull your forks off, you're gonna forget to put the strap back on, and then you're gonna have to pull your forks back off. Well, other thing that I did is I pulled the bulb out of the headlight. I think I'm gonna get a blanking plate, but they're all kind of expensive. The headlight itself is like 80 bucks, so this lens piece. The bulb LED part itself is like almost 300 bucks. So this is the piece that I want to protect. I don't really need a headlight unless I'm trail riding. So, and I actually kind of like the look of it though. This is another thing I like to do. I like to safety wire these clips here. It's super, super handy because they do come out. If you ride a lot in the rocks, you're gonna beat one of these clips out of there for sure. And I do that front and rear. Some people get really fancy and tie the two together. I don't go that far. This usually works pretty good. So yeah, just gonna do a couple quick little things here and get ready to do a little test ride tomorrow at the mounds. All right, so now we're here at the mounds. First lap on the turn track. Do a few laps and kind of get used to the bike. It's very, very different to ride from the gas, I will say. But some things that are immediately apparent is a brand new front tire. I have so much grip in the front. The rear is sliding around a little bit too much. Got a fairly worn clues. Slick here today. It's pretty early in the morning still, so there's still some dew on the grass. Gonna have to be careful. I feel my back end is stepping out around pretty much every corner right now. And normally, I can't ride KTM sitting down. This bike is pretty easy to ride sitting down. The front end doesn't plant quite as well as the Explorer suspension, but it's pretty close. I think that running that little bit less oil really helps. So far I like it. I feel like it's not quite as planted as the gas, but it does turn better. It's a much better turning bike. The gas is almost a little lazy. This turns well, but it's also pretty stable once that you pick up the speed. The front end just feels planted. I think the back end is a little loose because of the tire setup. It's a little too squishy for how loose it is, or how wet it's slick. It's like hard pack slick stuff. So the knobs aren't really digging in the back. Practicing some uphill pivot turns here. Bike's doing pretty well. The throttle is a little bit easier to manage than the gas, but I don't have a 9mm clutch here, so you got to be a little more precise with the clutch. And it's a little bit taller, which makes it a little bit easier or a little harder. Jay's practicing his clutch control. See, it doesn't take much. All you need is a couple little hills. You can practice all kinds of cool stuff. Alright, onto the woods track, which is a little bit slimy today. Actually, I'm feeling like my front end is washing out a bit. Whew. Yeah, it's not quite as precise as the really hard pack grass track out here right now. Practicing the unstuck technique. These things are nice because they're much safer than a log, but they're pretty big and they're undercut, so that makes it pretty treacherous. Good practice. Knees forward, snap back, and back. That's pretty good. The easy part of the hard enduro trail. I don't even know what I'm here, man. Nobody's ridden this recently, it looks like. So it's a little slick. Good times. Oh, this bike has such good drive. And this second gear, that's nice. Right off the bottom. Big ass rut. if I want to go up there, I have to go the sketchier way. It is pretty sketchy. Yup. Alright guys, so I've been riding this bike all day here at the mounds, and I like it. The TBI platform, and I mean the platform itself, is pretty damn good. I am sold. The TBI bike is fantastic, but there's a couple things that I kind of like about this bike where I really notice the difference. The first one being balance. So whatever they did for mass centralization really paid dividends. This bike, even though it's a little taller than my gas is way easier to static balance on. And I have the same tire setups, but I can go up these ledges and stuff, and I'm just playing, feet on the pegs, everything. Just awesome. The throttle and the engine is very, very predictable, very easy to modulate. So you don't need to kind of be as precise with the clutch, because you can control the bike a lot better with the throttle. Everything's just very precise, like I said when I rode Alex's bike, and it's really good. The suspension, and I don't know if it's the 812 revalve or just the suspension in general, is pretty good. The forks going over rocks like this, I mean, most of these are about the size of my head. Almost don't really feel anything. You feel them a little bit, but it doesn't beat you up, it doesn't roll, it stays very planted. The shock is a little harsh. I feel like I want it a little bit softer, but the shock is also new. They put this in when I bought the bike, but the forks are actually, I'm really happy with how these are working. Just all these rocks, no problem. It's almost too easy. So guys, I'm sold. Love my gas, but I do feel like this is an upgrade. It's a very easy bike to ride. Very easy bike to ride in hard enduro situations. So yeah guys, that's it. I think this bike is ready for some gnar. Make a couple little adjustments here, and good to go for riding in some hard enduro situations in a couple weeks. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you got any other suggestions for mods or setup tips for the TBI bikes, it's a new platform for me, so let me know, and I'll see you out on the trails.